and thank you so much for tuning back into another episode of TNT the K-Cow Kids. We had a little poltergeist because we're filming on Halloween. I'm Ty Justice.
And I'm Todd Fox.
And we're going to continue talking about some of the greatest cartoons ever made. And in the K-Cow Kids block today, we're going to start out with a cartoon that was made 90 years ago.
Wow.
And it is starring Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy. And this is Mickey's Fire Brigade from 1935. And this is a great short. There's action from top to bottom, from opening iris to closing iris. It's just action-packed. And as we were talking about off screen, this is one of the opportunities they had again to use the trio, because at this point, even by 1935, Walt knew that he couldn't really use Mickey like he could other characters. Mickey was very much pigeonholed into a box of good manners, pleasant disposition all the time. And
Be safe.
Be safe. He couldn't be mischievous. The public wouldn't allow that. He couldn't start trouble. He couldn't get angry. He had to be this perfect little character the entire time. And this is partially Walt's fault because that's kind of how they set him up. But this like perfect character really couldn't, get out of line because the public would write in and be angry. But Donald Duck and Goofy could be either stupid or angry, and it was perfectly fine. So when they had this trio of Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Trinity for Disney shorts, more things could happen, and it was more exciting of a story because Mickey could still be in them because he was still the company mascot, doing his own thing, being a leader and being the good little boy, while Donald could get crazy angry and Goofy can get in all sorts of messes and be dumb and all that and be a goof. And, you would still have a great story. And cutting these shorts into three specific character points or moments really helped keep the action going too, because they didn't have to figure out what to do from scene to scene. They could be just separate vignettes that work together, like in the Fire Brigade, Mickey's Fire Brigade.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like the Three Stooges with Moe if he was competent and sane.
Right.
And then, Goofy and Donald are Larry and Curly. It would work, but
Pluto was Shemp. We don't talk about Shemp.
Yeah, we don't. He's irrelevant. A curse to the trio.
Right.
But this particular trio, you're absolutely right. Mickey had to be the leader. He had to be the hero. But like the different vignettes was very awesome because those stories would eventually collaborate.
Right.
So whatever schemes or things they were getting into, disasters or things they were trying to avoid, or skits in general, they would eventually come back around and finish out the story. So
that's right. That was a great thing. It would come back to the head.
Yeah, it was you're absolutely right. This Fire Brigade was freaking awesome from the start, from the opening, the fire truck,
right,
which came to the scene, which had that old school, like it wasn't 1930s when it was made.
It was 1910 kind of a fire truck, or 1920 at the latest. Yeah,
wood burning furnace, on the back
pump,
Goofy.
Yeah, to get the water going.
Yeah, and then the crank on the siren. So, I mean, there was a lot of detail to that fire truck coming out there, too.
It was really great, too. Yeah, because a lot of times the animators, I think, popped in things that were, important to their childhood. Of course,
Correct.
Walt didn't draw. He stopped drawing in like the early 20s. And all this was his artists. They were his artists doing this. So they did incorporate a lot of their own personal experiences and childhood memories into these shorts. Walt, on the other hand, was like Mickey, though. He was the leader.
Yeah.
And, he did control a lot of these and which direction and which way they went. And he always had an idealized memory of his childhood growing up. So he was always trying to create that and recreate that. And when you go into Disneyland, he was actually trying to recreate that part of his childhood as well. And of course, Walt had his secret office up there in one of the buildings, I think above the fire station, if I'm not mistaken. But, that was him trying to recreate, and they were all doing that. And to great effect too, because in these cartoons, you had like more modern aspects, which were like the homes of that era, but and then the landscaping of California at the time in the late 20s, early 30s, a lot of open lots, a lot of open space, separate garages that were like workshops. So you had a lot of fun touches in this, but like the fire truck itself had a lot of great stuff. We talk about the patches on the tires, which is a nice thing.
Good staple.
Exactly.
We talked about that one where he's Mickey's the picnic, where he's the hero. His car had the patches on the tire.
Mickey's Rival.
Yeah, there you go. So
I don't know if there's ever a car that doesn't have a patch on the tire in the Disney shorts.
That's at least a link to Donald or Mickey or Goofy. Yeah,
they can't afford a new car or new tires, but hey, not much has changed.
Exactly,
because those things are expensive.
Yeah, maybe it's a $5 patch back in the day. Who knows?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, and then the drawing was amazing because, like you said, the backgrounds from the Adobe style, like clay type tile
archways
on the roof. Yeah, the archways as well. and then the people like running out there during the fire before the fire truck gets there. I mean, that's a lot of drawing. There was a lot of like background movement.
Yeah, no, there was, and that's why we were talking about it before. That there's from beginning to end, it doesn't stop. It's just action, 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 and it keeps your attention, and it's fascinating that way. But it took a lot of work to do that because the artist had to individually draw these little characters that were like from Mickey's Orphans, these little Mickey Mouse characters, like baby Mickeys everywhere. But it to good effect, because it was really it really kept everything moving, and even the character designs in the function themselves, like Mickey, Donald, Goofy, they were so springy and wiry, and Goofy's always been kind of like a wet noodle, but they use it to good effect again in this. Everything's constantly moving, jumping. The only time I think Goofy's upright in this is when they use him for a battering ram.
Yeah. He stands very stiff and at attentive, like he's in the military.
Yeah, because he knows he's going to be the battering ram, head first.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But no, this is a great one. And even the fire itself is its own character, because there are times where the action or the gags are instigated by the fire itself, of course, because it's a fire. But then it anthropomorphizes and becomes like human hands that closes a window and then gets Mickey all messed up and discombobulated because he's trying to get up this ladder out from the truck to start putting the fire out in the house. Got the hose in hand, and he's about to do it when the fire closes the window on him. It sends him, because of the pressure of the hose, sends him flying up into the air, and the water hits us.
Yeah,
basically.
Which is freaking awesome, because it's like we talked about off air. It's the fourth wall, breaking the fourth wall. I mean, because the sound actually like muffles or goes quiet a bit, as if
a little bit,
as if the water had flooded the speaker. It's got to dry out first, so the water's got to wash down.
Right.
And then as soon as the water comes off the screen, then it's back to action and back to the original sound. Whoever put that in there at that particular time is a freaking genius.
Yeah, it was great. And again, like we've talked about before, the cartoons of the 30s just had an energy that just wasn't there later on, simply because I think they were flying from the seat of their pants. They were just constantly going for all the gags they could to make it as funny as possible. And then once the war came and the cartoons became a little more homogenized and a little more, they're still good. They were still funny, but they were streamlined in a lot of ways. They were beautiful.
Correct.
They were beautiful, but it wasn't as much about the gags as it was a little more about the art in a way. And it was still funny, but you had less characters in them because it was just simpler and cheaper to draw.
And you had some slower parts, like where these were
pauses.
Just like you said. Yeah, these were like to set up the story.
Yeah,
like these were just like, okay, the action set up the story.
Yeah,
and like we talked about a couple episodes ago of Mickey's Whirlwind.
Yeah,
how the leaves had that look of like they had like the parts of the leaf acted like the feet. You didn't have a face, you didn't have a smile, but they could recognize people or recognize Mickey.
They were alive.
Yeah, and the fire, the little flames were doing that with Donald.
Yep.
Like you mentioned. And so it's pretty cool.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because now that I'm talking about it, now that we're talking about it, I think it's funny because they were still building up a lot of these characters, because they were like, well, it's more gag. It went from being more gag driven to more character driven.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, especially in the 40s, these characters were so recognizable that you could build it around their character and people would be entertained. And that's where I think a part of the shift came from as well. It was definitely, because it was cheaper to draw one character in a cartoon, because you had the Union issues in the 40s and the early 40s, and you had the war effort, which shifted focus. But a lot of times these characters became so well known, you didn't really have to have as many, because there's Clarabelle Cow in there, whom they try to save in the fire, which is hilarious because she's trying to fight them off, thinking they're trying to kidnap her and do horrible things. But a lot of these characters over the years were just kind of like annexed, or not annexed, but they were just kind of phased out, shoved off to the side. And, it was just the focus on these main characters. Now, Disney did a lot of like silly symphonies that were just one-shots, and it wasn't of the mains. But for the main characters themselves, it was just basically, them being written, or the stories being written based on who they were, as opposed to getting into situations or gags. It was things that they would initiate through their character, through character studies, and that changed the pacing of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of good, like, from what no other cartoon that Disney did at this point, obviously with the flames is a different thing with the fire trucks and everything else like that. Yeah. But I like the fact that You had the fire acting like a fire at times, burning like the windowsill, as you could see, or maybe certain parts of the wall, because the background was very descriptive. But when it came to a part in the plot where they had to get up the stairs to get to the cow, Clarabelle. I said it right.
Yeah, you did.
So trying to get to Clarabelle the cow, of course, Donald's the last one up those stairs.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the flames come to life and they're like, hey, we're trying to burn him. And they start burning his biscuits as he's going up the stairs. And then when he says, oh, I'll take you on, let's fight, they create a circle and almost, drop him into downstairs on fire. He has to jump. So, it's very interactive. It's so he's battling that while they're trying to get upstairs. Goofy's going, like he's doing all his goofy stuff.
Yeah, I know they're getting angry. Well, the funny thing is, I didn't realize this until right now, but because we screened this before we started recording, they don't put out the fire.
They don't.
They don't succeed. They save Clarabelle Cow. They get her out, and because they have to take her tub out of the window while she's beating them with her back scrubber, and covering herself with the curtains. But they get her out. She destroys, because it goes like a missile. Her tub goes down off the roof like a missile and pretty much destroys their fire engine. But yeah, at the same time she's clocking them because they all end up in her tub. But yeah, they never put out the fire. They fail.
Yeah, because after Mickey's failed attempt to put the water on there, and then the crab cuts the hose or the ladder and stuff like that.
The fire becomes crab hooks.
Claws. I mean, literally, there's no more water to be put on the fire. They're literally throwing furniture out to kind of like take fuel away from the fire.
Right.
And then the part where you're describing with, her Clarabelle in the bathtub, she's literally naked.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a part where we're discussing off air, maybe why it's not on Disney Plus.
Yeah, because it's one of those that isn't there. Yeah, you can find it, but it's not there.
It's either the fish with the smoke rings, like you said, or Clarabelle naked. She's washing herself, and Goofy's peeking in, and he's all, "Ma'am, your house is on fire. Your fire's on your house," and she's hitting him, so he keeps messing up the.
He was kind of pervy in this one. They called him the Goof. Maybe they should call him the Goon.
Yeah, he did look like it.
The Gooner. But no, it's true. And the smoke rings, there's one part where Donald's trying to put out the fire by catching the fire in a bucket and throwing it into the water, into the fish bowl.
Yes.
There's a fish in there. And of course, the fire gets put up, and there's a bunch of smoke in the water, and the fish kind of comes out and blows out smoke rings that are in his bowl now. And with Disney and Disney Plus, a lot of times they will annex a lot of things that have to do with smoking. Like cartoons that have smoking in it, usually they will either have a warning on it, like when it comes to Pinocchio, or when it comes to the shorts, they just will take them off. But there's not a lot of rhyme or reason sometimes as to why they do that. With a few of them I understand, but for the most part, there's a lot of them that aren't on there still.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because you're throwing away history. Like this episode is really good, and I know we talked too off air. When I first picked up this episode, obviously being called the K-Cow Kids on our own show. Like, by the way, like and subscribe.
Yay, subscribe! Yay!
All right. All right, stop cheering at home.
I know. Okay. Listen.
But do subscribe.
Yes.
But how I first saw this one is they were, the K-Cow Kids were at Main Street at the fire station, and they were like, hey, check out this fire station right here, and the fire truck, look how clean it is, and blah, 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 what year is this? And then the guy tells them, because he's like working for Disney, and then they're like, hey, I know someone else who used a fire truck, and then bam, segue into the cartoon.
Which they would do.
Yes, so that's how I first saw it.
Right, and stuff like that always sticks with you. It's clever. It's corny, but it's clever. It stays with you.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're grown men, and we still remember these transitions. And by the way, subscribe! Yay! Okay, that's not as clean, but not as corny either. Maybe.
Good segue.
But no, that was one of my more favorite shorts. I loved I love the stuff from the 30s. It just has such great, clean energy. And they were learning. I mean, every short they did in the 30s, it was a step forward, and they were trying to best themselves when it came to action, when it came to, technique, when it came to the gags and the fluidity of the movement, and every one of them got better and better. So it's a wonderful testament to their skill and how it kept getting better and better as they were taking classes, too, while they were still animating these shorts. On campus there at Disney. But yeah, it's a great short, 1935, 90 years old, and remembered well by us and many others.
Well, last thing I got on it is just that book you showed me on the shorts. Amazing artwork, and it just further makes me appreciate the background.
Oh yeah, the background art,
looking at the back.
gouache.
Yeah, and I know like the comic books we talked about. How, when we used to read comics, I'd blow through it and just to get the story. But then you go back and you look frame by frame and you're like, okay, I noticed a detail, an Easter egg here, a nugget there. And you're like, wow, that's really cool. You appreciate the comic for the artwork more.
Yeah.
So I think it's like that with these cartoons, man. I mean, you see a lot of things that you probably never saw as a kid and that you're like, wow, man, that really captures the era and the time period.
And the jokes land differently, of course, when you're an adult. So you're like, oh, that's what they were saying. That's what that is. And you understand their struggle a little differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is true. I had as we said previously, the death of Superman is when I got into comics. So my uncle got me a trade paperback of it at one point, and then I read through it. I didn't keep track of it as it was happening, but it was just something that he picked up for me later on. And I read that thing so much cover to cover, the whole trade paperback, that the cover was falling off. And I think one of my teachers had to put book tape on it
to keep it together.
Yeah, and I still have that somewhere. It's somewhere floating around the collection.
It may not be worth much, but to
me, gold. I'll still sell it. But,
for the right price.
For the right price. It smells like me as a kid. No,
there you go.
But it's one of my favorites. But that book was Pierre Lambert's Mickey Mouse, and he did a few books in the late '90s and kind of recently too for Disney. 4 or 5 of them I think are French releases only, but the one that I had previously of his was the Pinocchio book, which I'll throw a graphic up on. But then he did one on just the Mickey shorts and Mickey Mouse in general, and it's a beautiful book. These books are highly, highly produced, very highly sought after, and I acquired it recently. It is in the collection, and it's a personal favorite, but it has a lot of background artwork, and it's basically coffee table book, weighs like 15 pounds, but coffee table book, a lot of backgrounds, a lot of sketches, and all that.
It's absolutely beautiful. You almost think that some of those pages are original artwork. That's how good it translates to that book. I mean, it's beautiful.
It's wonderful, and I love stuff like that. I wish Disney would do more of that. I know they have in the past, and there are wonderful books out there, but just books like that, they're just such prestige format books. They're just gorgeous.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Mickey's Fire Brigade, 1935, a winner for sure. And now we want to transition over to Saturday mornings.
Okay.
And Saturday mornings, there's something that you usually don't equate to Saturday mornings would be Winnie the Pooh. And when my mom was pregnant with me, she had everything themed Winnie the Pooh. She didn't want to know if I was a boy or a girl, so it was all neutral green color. So it was like a light yellow green, which doesn't sound great, but when you see it in action, it worked. It was pretty good. But growing up, Disney, I think, finally acquired, there was a rights issue thing for a number of years, but Disney did acquire them. And on Disney Plus, not too long ago, I didn't remember the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which is what we're going to talk about. But I thought, just for the heck of it, for nostalgia's sake, for Winnie the Pooh, I'd choose it on Disney Plus just to check it out. And then the theme song came up, and I go, oh my God. And it unlocked this memory for me. And I'm like, I must have watched this somehow as a kid. And, it's a very, very iconic theme song, at least for me. And it just unlocked that core memory of being just a little kid watching it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it from back then, it's very wholesome. And I think, but when you look at it now as an adult, maybe you could say, well, was Christopher Robin, was he avoiding some sort of family tragedy or something that was weighing him down, divorce possibly of his parents. So he's trying to create this imaginary, adventures with his stuffed animals. But it worked because there was life lessons with each one of these characters. Each one of these characters had an extreme character flaw.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But in the end, you had lessons learned and wholesome situations. And it was one of my mom's favorites because, again, like, she read the books as a kid. So she had the original paperbacks or the hardcovers, and then she passed those on to my sister. My sister got into it. She watched the original version, and then I got into the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And then one of the songs I always know that there was going to be a lesson learned was when they played and then Piglet was either sad and Pooh was bringing him up, or Pooh was sad and there's Christopher Robin.
Right.
So it was like that kind of thing. So I have fond memories of it.
No, for sure. Yeah, I didn't realize that before, that your mom loved it so much.
Absolutely.
I have a book it compiles the original stories. And I was thinking about just like doing a reading series for kids on like TikTok or something.
Hey,
like
that would work actually.
My voice can put anyone to sleep. But no, and yeah, growing up with it was kind of a special thing for me. I have a couple of pieces that I kept, or my mom kept, from when I was a baby. So I still have like a blanket and a trash can that I still use that are Winnie the Pooh themed. But interesting characters, yeah, and definitely an interesting tie into like childhood and like Eeyore we've talked about.
Yeah.
And the character of Eeyore is just a depressed, sad little character. And, you know, it's important for kids to, I think, be exposed to all facets of human emotion. And, you know, they're going to be sad, they're going to be happy, they're going to be hyperactive, which Tigger definitely was.
Oh, yeah.
ADHD kind of a guy. But, you know, it's important to kind of incorporate all those things. And it reminds me of Sesame Street when in the episode where Mr. Hooper passed away. Because in real life, the actor died. And the producers thought it was important not to hide the fact that he died and like cast another actor and just have it go on with somebody else. They thought that, you know, they wanted to give kids the opportunity to experience that and to understand it, because Big Bird was who they worked through, because Big Bird was like a big 4-year-old on the show. Correct. So, you know, he had a hard time understanding that Mr. Hooper was gone, that he had
processing
died.
it, yeah.
And the adults, everybody, and the cast members were crying at the end of this sketch that they did, but they let him know that, you know, Mr. Hooper died. They didn't sugarcoat it, but they weren't too harsh with it. Like, yeah, he blew his brains out. He died of cancer. You know, it was appropriate for children. Like, no, he died. He's never coming back. And they wanted to avoid it being preachy too, and talking about religion or afterlife or anything like that. So they handled it straight. And they did, and they made sure to release that episode on Thanksgiving Day, so when children would watch it, they would have their families around them in case they had questions or they were very sad, and you know they had their support systems there. But the same thing with Winnie the Pooh and the Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and you know Eeyore's origin in general. You know, he's a sad little guy, and sometimes kids have to understand that sometimes you're sad, sometimes your people in your life that you love are sad, and sometimes all you can do is just kind of sit with them, you know, and that's kind of an important quiet lesson, you know, for children.
Yeah, and you know, there's, now that I think of it too, like Piglet, he was that guy that, you know, very insecure, very frightened. But if you look at his house inside that tree, it was like very clean. He was a neat freak.
Right.
You know, and whereas Pooh, his best friend, is more of a slob.
Right.
You know, everything's like
eating with his hands.
Yeah, with a mess. He's getting stuck. He's like, oh, bother.
Bother. Yeah.
And then Eeyore's over there, you know, like he can't build that little stick house. It keeps falling apart. And he's like, well, guess I don't have a house.
He was unhoused. That was very forward thinking.
And see, when they weren't doing that stuff with Tigger, if Tigger went on some sort of like, you know, adventure or he was scared, he would always take Roo with him.
Yeah.
And that was like his little brother, not brother, you know?
Right,
and Kanger, I forgot her name, the mother, but she was always apprehensive at first because she was always worried that he would get into trouble or he may get hurt. Yeah. But he looked up to Tigger. Right. You know, and so you had little storylines like that. You had the owl that was protective, that gave the wise advice.
Did you say that reminded you of your mom?
Yes, it reminded me of my mom. And like, even to where before my mom passed, you know, with my nephew, you know, his whole baby shower was Winnie the Pooh themed. Oh. And she loved that. So whenever, like when my girls were young and they were little, they had Winnie the Pooh blankets. So it was a thing that I think was passed down by generation.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't think I ever had that conversation with your mom. I wonder if my mom ever did, because our mothers knew each other for a while. So I wonder if my mom ever said that, if that ever came up. It's funny, the things you don't know about people.
You know, it might have, because again, you know, my mom was very open like your mom, and they talked a lot. And I think they both love kids. And I think that was, you know, something about that show, like again in a time period, bro, where it's the 90s, you're seeing action, you're seeing actual like comic book violence coming to Saturday mornings, to weekday afternoon cartoons, and the more edgier you can get, the better. That had a time and place.
Yeah, the 80s.
No, but for Winnie the Pooh to survive through that era, and it was a popular show.
Yeah, it did some good stuff.
Yeah, so
did good numbers.
I give it all the credit. I mean,
it takes all kinds. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the truth. Like, it takes all kinds. It takes a variety. Kids, like, you know, you give, like, yeah, kids are like, I want to eat ice cream all day long. But then, you know, after 2 meals of that, they're like, I don't like this anymore. You know?
but see, like right now, bro, I could tell you with an honest, you know, face, and to the people watching right now who are subscribing, yay,
Yeah, subscribe.
But I could tell you with an honest face, like right now, I'm not ashamed to watch it.
Yeah, no.
You know, but back in the day,
When you're a
you're not
teenager,
bragging about it.
No.
But I bet you anything, most of your friends were watching it. Were
Oh,
like, it's
yeah.
a good show,
Yeah.
but they're scared to admit it.
Because there's something, you know, that's still pulling you, you know,
Yeah.
there's something about societal pressure that makes you dislike things. And when you get older, you're like, why did I do that? But it's peer pressure. But yeah, that's the thing. All the kids are, you know, so worried. And when we're that age, when we're young, when we're teenagers, preteens, we're always afraid of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you get older, you're like, doesn't matter. Who cares? But I mean, we all go through that phase.
Oh yeah, because
yeah.
back in the day, I wasn't bragging that I watched the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh or Gummy Bears,
Right.
stuff like that. Like,
But we did.
yes, I still like X-Men and Batman.
Exactly. I know. You got to shake it off. Like, no, Batman, Wolverine. Shing. You know.
But what if the Gummy Bears met up with Spider-Man?
Right? Hey, some good crossover there.
Spider gummies.
Disney. Some ideas for you.
Right.
But no, they were good shows, and they had good core values in them, and they weren't, again, successful animated series did not talk down or did not speak down to their audience, and that's what made them either succeed or fail. And the show had good animation too. It was full animation. It was rich. It wasn't limited. It was in the era of the 80s when they were getting back into full animation, putting more money into their cartoons, and it showed.
How about that scene? I don't know if you remember, but the ending credits where it showed them sitting on a log, Christopher Robin with his arm around Winnie the Pooh. I always thought that was perfect.
Oh yeah,
I always thought that was
a great way
perfect.
to end it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they did a good job with that. It was a good reimagining, and again, it didn't feel too modern. If you watch it now, something I found out when I just stumbled upon it on Disney Plus, and it looks good. It doesn't look of any particular time. I mean, it looks like it was of 80s, 90s, but not in a bad way. It was of the revolution, I was going to say, but the Renaissance, the second animated Renaissance of the 80s and 90s, and it's of that.
It can translate. You know, I know other people have had theories about, you know, Christopher Robin being the kid and those characters are adults in that person's life. You know, maybe Winnie the Pooh's a grandpa, you know, like a
That he imagines. as
yeah.
his characters.
So that's an interesting way to look at it too.
Yeah.
You know, or I've heard people say, oh, the Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is Christopher Robin's inner, you know, different, sort of like how Disney did the with the core memories.
The different parts of the inner id.
What's that
Inside Out.
Yeah, maybe it's his Inside Out.
Right.
You know, so
they're different aspects of his character.
correct. So,
Interesting.
and it's an interesting theory because once you watch a movie like Inside Out, it's like, oh,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
it could be. I know, and that's the fun part. It's kind of up for interpretation, but that's Winnie the Pooh in general.
Absolutely.
You know, like there's books like the Tao of Pooh and all this stuff that gets very philosophical when it comes to Winnie the Pooh and all that, and it kind of blows your mind that, you know, this little kid story can really be taken in a lot of different directions. It's like scripture; it's just interpreted differently by different people. The Scripture of Pooh, the Book of Pooh, and again that name.
Yeah,
to this day, I'm like, you couldn't have called him Johnny.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of double meanings or a lot of, you know.
Johnny the Bear would have been fine. I'm just saying. But no, I mean, it meant something different at a different time, I'm sure.
Last thing I got on it, Ty, is do you remember all the drawings as far as if they were making a for sale sign? It didn't matter who or Pooh was drawing, like say, for instance, you know, no trespassing, a sell or stay away or whatever. 100 Acre Wood, there would always be a backward or a letter or a misspelled letter.
Someone was dyslexic in 100 Acre Woods.
So.
Somebody had dyslexia. There was something going on there. Yeah, I know that was always kind of a funny gag when you would see that. But yeah, because it makes it seem like they're kids. Because, you know, as kids, we don't have that proper. When we're young kids, we can't always get the S's the right way, or you know, things are backwards. But that's like an instant indication that it is from a child. Yeah. Or a child. childlike perspective.
Like on some of the jars, like you'd see honey, or it'd say free honey, like to get Pooh, and one of the E's was backwards on honey or on free. So I mean, it's just little things like that were pretty cool.
No, but if you notice though, all the jars that said cocaine were perfectly done. there was no misspellings. I mean, they understood what they were doing, what they were really selling.
Plentiful.
Plentiful. All right. Well, now we're going to transition into something a little more 90s, a little more edgy, and a little more after school. And we're going to be running home to school to Eek the Cat.
Wow. Yeah. Bringing back this show is very much nostalgic for me because this one actually started on Canadian television.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Is that why he's so polite?
And it was called Thunder Lizards.
Thunder Lizards?
Yes.
You got to be kidding me.
No, it's called Thunder Lizards.
So, I don't know nearly as much about Eek the Cat as my friend here, but I'm going to learn.
And the first season was Eek the Cat because it was only him, his owner, Annabelle, the big fat girl with the pigtails, and Sharky, her dog, which was always the one that was shaped like a shark in the face and would always bite Eek. And he had a couple catchphrases, which was never hurts to help. And what was the other one here? I'm looking at it right now. Hold on. He would say never hurt on Kumbaya. Or Kumbaya! Like when he'd fall or something.
Like Geronimo!
Yeah, he would always get the butt end of the stick, dude. Like,
I'm still tripping out on Thunder Lizards. Why was it called Thunder Lizards? Is that a Canadian thing?
And it's weird, too, because you'll never guess how many seasons this show was on.
Here in the States or in Canada?
From Canada from here, because it was about the same time. It was on Canadian television for about 6 months, and then it translated here and from Canada, from Thunder Lizards to Eek the Cat to then after season 1, the rest of it was Eek Extravaganza.
Okay, how many?
And it was 5 seasons, 92 to 97.
So how many episodes?
Let's see, episodes. I'm trying to see right here. There's a ton of voices, I'll tell you that right now. 75 episodes.
That's okay, so it wasn't a full, they didn't start out thinking it was a syndication package kind of show.
No.
So it just kind of kept winning its place. It says a lot about the show, because a lot of times with animated series, they'll be like, okay, we'll order 65, it'll automatically go into syndication, and we can, play it 3 or 4 times throughout the year, the whole season, and then, we don't have to worry about it. And then if a show does exceptionally well, then they're like, well, give them 10 more episodes or blah. But for it to keep fighting for its life, it seemed every season to do maybe 12, 15 episodes a season.
Something like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty good.
It's really weird because it was created by Steve Savage Holland. And he would go on to make Savage Studios. So it was independent cartoon, which he sold in Canada and in the United States.
Good for him.
The ball was rolling. It got popular, and it became a part of Fox mornings on Saturday morning. However, it made the jump. I think this is the first cartoon that we'll have covered that has been a Saturday morning cartoon and a run home to watch. It was an after school show.
So they wrote episodes for after school specifically.
No, what they did was they intended it for it to be on a Saturday morning block, which it did all right, but it caught fire in the afternoon block.
Gotcha, I hear you.
And that's when it turned into Eek Extravaganza, and I
remember that.
Yeah, it went from just those 3 main characters to several, and so sort of turned into like a Garfield, where Garfield had his all these exterior characters and stuff to kind of give a breather to Eek and his stuff going on. You had all these different characters and villains going. So they had up to 25 characters.
Wow.
That made the Eek Extravaganza show be, because it just started as a jolly purple character, purple cat that, had weird animation, like when he would get hit by trucks. Ran over, shot, all kinds of stuff, dude.
Yeah, I remember he got a lot of bad stuff happened to him in that show.
Oh, a lot, dude. And here's the funny thing too. Here's one that I didn't even know, and I did when I was doing research on it. Do you know that this show is owned by Disney now?
That doesn't surprise me. They kind of own everything.
it was passed over to them in 2001.
Oh gosh!
So 4 years into syndication. They got the rights to it, and they currently own it and don't do anything with it.
Is it on Disney Plus?
That I don't know.
Interesting. Eek the Cat.
I haven't seen Eek the Cat in years other than on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It is on YouTube, but it is property of Disney as of now.
I'm going to look that up because that is kind of an important point. Is Eek the Cat on Disney Plus?
Oh, yeah. So like I mentioned, you had Annabelle, you had Eek, obviously, Shark the Shark Dog. You had Elmo the Elk, which was his best friend. You had Timmy, which is Elmo's younger brother, so he was brought along. You had the mom of Annabelle, who was just as big and got into more troubles. They would sit on Eek all the time.
I remember that. It's not on Disney Plus, by the way.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
But you're right. They own the rights to it, but yeah, they haven't done anything with it. That's so sad.
Yeah. You had Mittens, who was voiced by Dan Castanella.
Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, you have the squishy bears, Cozy, Puffy, Was, and Pierre. You had Granny. You had Steven the Squirrel, and then you had Piggy, the Penguin, Hank, and Jib. Platinum. The villains were Zoltar, the Rat Pack, with Ringo, Shifty, Loser, and Stinky. So,
fun. Yeah. You had a lot of fun with that show.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing, though. Shows in the 90s did have a certain amount of adult humor in it, and sometimes that's why they're not like really shown too often now on Disney Plus. But like shows like that always make me think of like early shows like Bobby's World and another one, Family Dog, which was a Tim Burton cartoon.
Yes. Yeah.
And that had somewhat similar art styles, but I think Eek the Cat was a little more extreme. But then it also makes me think of like Courage the Cowardly Dog, Afro Monsters, like all this Nickelodeon stuff too that came out around that time. The 90s just was explosive when it came to that style of cartoon, that like kind of ugly cute kind of a kind of an era. And
Eek the Cat had, speaking of color, extreme amounts of color. Like when something would happen in the background, it'd be almost like a seizure, like bringing on of different strobe lights and different colors. And even the characters were drawn very crudely and very edgy, and then with a lot of color as well. And I think, to your point, which wouldn't fly today, is they pushed the whole making fun of the fat family,
right,
or just the gluttony part of it, like showing that she was just obsessed with food. So yeah, I think a lot of that stuff would not fly today, but was prevalent back in the day.
This is inappropriate, but it reminds me of that meme of that very obese couple adopting that dog, and the dog looks a little scared, and the caption at the bottom goes, "When you realize you're never going to get walked again." Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Not to say those people wouldn't walk the dog, but it
fits with that cartoon.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't know how that would fly today. Which is unfortunate because it was a funny cartoon. But yeah, some of that stuff, even Family Dog, I don't think would be around anymore.
Yeah, I know they tried, like, say, for instance, Ren and Stimpy, which was super edgy.
Yeah,
they tried to redo that one, and that one didn't really go. I mean, obviously, it's lost its luster. It was the whole point of those kind of cartoons was it was edgy for a reason. It was trying to push the limits, and I think that was one of those shows that I don't know what Fox was thinking when they acquired them, because I remember vividly, like, I was obsessed with cartoons, and I remember when there was no fanfare for this one. There was no, hey, look what's coming to Fox Saturday morning. It was just like all of a sudden I'm turning on the television and
Purple Cat.
Yeah. Eek. I'm like, who the hell is Eek?
Right.
Like,
what kind of a name is that?
Like, the whole thing was just like so crazy because it was just like, it was like a hardcore metal, and he's just getting rammed, thrown into, blown up. And it just says Eek at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what's the point of the show?
So weird. But it caught on.
It did.
It stayed on until 97, which is great.
5 years. It's a long time.
Yeah. It's a long time for animation in general, because I don't think people realize just how tricky it is with a lot, even the bigger shows. Like the longest running animated series before The Simpsons was The Flintstones.
Correct.
And almost every show that Hanna-Barbera did after The Simpsons was one season. Like, almost all of them just ran one season. That was kind of it. Scooby-Doo was a little different, but for the most part, of all the shows they did, very few of them lasted longer than that, because people didn't think that, cartoons needed to go longer than that. You just needed to get your syndication package and go, if even that. But yeah, for a show in the 90s to kind of last that long, it's pretty good. But even shows like Batman Beyond, we've talked about that before. Batman Beyond season 3, they thought they were going to get like another 13 episodes, but they were cut short, even though they were assured that they were going to get another season, or at least another half of a season. And that's why they created an epilogue episode of Justice League Unlimited, so they could finish off Batman Beyond. It's a crazy thing, but it's very uncertain in the world of cartoons. So for a show to kind of keep pushing on, it means it has a good share of the viewership.
Yeah, and a good support system. I think Savage had a lot to do with it because he still kept his name on it. He was still producing it. And, like we've talked before, we've kind of touched on the Animaniacs a little bit, Tiny Toons with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Those type of shows, I think, for the fans, that's why they were reinvented, or at least Animaniacs was.
Yeah.
It's because those were so good for their time period to where even now they would work. When they tried, Animaniacs, I just think they failed a little bit with it. They could have made it a little bit better, but
still time.
Yeah, the point being is, I think those could have went on for 5, 6, 7 seasons when both those shows were done in 3.
Yeah,
and it left you wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much you could do because of the cast that was involved with the cartoon, as far as the voice actors or the characters themselves were just good. I mean, you could go several different directions with all the characters. And I think this was one show where, like I read the list, that's how they were able to prolong it. Like you weren't oversaturated with Eek, sort of like with Garfield.
Right.
They brought in the right group of characters to prolong it and get to that magical 65 episode.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Syndication package.
I'm learning things from Ty.
It's the magic number. But no, for a show to keep kind of dragging on and keep pushing through to get to that syndication package organically, which that did, says a lot about the show and how people really loved it, especially with not, like you said, not a lot of fanfare. It really kind of was a grassroots movement for that, especially for a Canadian cartoon to make it here. I would love for them to do that, like to reimagine Tiny Toon Adventures.
Oh,
absolutely. Bring that back, Wacky
Absolutely.
Land and all that. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that. One thing that you brought up, Canadian thing, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, there was a lot of Canadian humor.
Okay.
And they did take shots at hockey players, maple syrup, anything to do with Canada.
Yeah,
they took shots, and it was funny.
Yeah.
And then they even had a character that did talk with A, like he had that supposed Canadian English accent.
Yep.
So it was funny.
Right,
Yeah. It was like, I think that might have been the elk.
Right. Okay.
It was,
Yep.
So you did have characters like that brought that cross brand. So it was, from what I remember, it was still popular in Canada. So it was still a good show, but it surprised me to know that Disney had got their hands on this one too.
I wonder how many shows Disney has that they're not doing anything with. I'm sure it's a lot more than we even realize.
Vaulted a lot.
Yeah. I mean, when Disney Plus originally was announced, they're like, we're going to put everything, on the platform. And I knew that wasn't true. I'm like, no, Disney is not one to pay for, the licensing agreements that it's going to take to get a lot of these shows legally on the air. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest ones, of course, being Muppet Babies. And a lot of the stuff, Alvin and the Chipmunks, same thing. They are not going to pay for the music rights or whatever rights it takes. And it could be the same thing with Eek the Cat. Maybe there was a special deal with the show creator, because sometimes, Disney doesn't know, they haven't always gotten everything clean. They like to, but sometimes it's a little messy. But again, sometimes they acquire shows that they did not produce originally, and there's copywritten material in it, or there's licensable material in it where they would have to pay for it to legally air, or take that segment out, or take that music out, or take that reference out, which is unfair. I'd rather them not release it but hold on to it, as opposed to butchering it. I know that's extreme, but I'd rather it not be butchered. I'd rather it be shown as originally intended. Just like with the Animaniacs, they had some really inappropriate jokes in there, but they were funny.
They were great.
And they usually stay with the home video releases, which is totally cool.
And with this one too, I mean, you had it was a show that obviously pushed the limits. I would like for it to be reimagined and to re-released, because it does have nostalgic flavor, and it could catch a new audience. Who knows? But last thing I got on this, bro, is maybe we should do a Fox perspective on the shows that were around, like on that animation block, or just a kids block in general, because think about what you had on at certain times, or at one period of time. You had Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, you had Batman, X-Men, Spider-Man, you had Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
You had Goosebumps.
Eek the Cat.
Eek the Cat.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff.
A lot of those were super edgy.
Really knocking it out of the ballpark.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of edgy humor in it. And maybe because there was such a saturation of that. I mean, we should do that for sure. Do like the Fox, but we should do it for like the WB, and we should do it for Fox, and we should do it for, because every
to show you how different.
Yeah, major network had their thing, but you know, there was such a saturation, a high saturation of animated content on TV at the time. I don't think everybody had a chance to pay attention to everything.
That's true.
You know, which is why I think it's why a lot of shows got away with so much, and especially if you're Warner Brothers at the top of your game. You're Warner Brothers, you know, and you're going to make these jokes. And it comes from your origins, though, because you see the Warner Brothers shorts from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They were mile-a-minute gags. You know, they were not just for kids at all. They were for everyone. And with Disney, you know, they had some of that. But at the same time, they were a very conservative company by comparison. And I think what branched out from those two major founding fathers of animation is their respective styles down the line. What branched out to be Warner Brothers, crazy, zany, no matter what, adult humor, and Disney, family oriented, because that's what kind of it evolved to be, especially after Walt's death. You know, because Walt wasn't necessarily a prude, but you know, it became much more conservative. You know, over after his death, and it's unfortunate. I mean, he would have enjoyed what came after, but you know, he had a little bit of like the wise ass in him too. You know what I mean? There was a little bit of that Warner Brothers just always had in droves. I mean, you look at Warner Brothers in the early 90s, mid 90s, the Wayans Brothers shows, live action shows too.
Yeah.
They were really putting together their WB. And the animation they had there was just like, yeah, why not? We can do this. Let's do it. And they went whole hog.
Yeah, that would be interesting to because I mean, the channels, at least here on the West Coast, you know, CBS was always like the family one, like, because their shows are still like that. If you look at, you know, it's what's the one with Tom Selleck? He was the cop. It's called
Magnum PI. Oh no, Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods is a more conservative show. Yeah.
You have that other show where it's like the Perry Mason. She calls herself. Dang it! Well, she's older. She's like a detective. Anyway, it's CBS type shows. You know what I mean?
Oh, are you talking about Law and Order?
No, it's another like Perry Mason shows. I forget, but it's like the. Damn it! She's like. Anyway, I'll pick up on it, or it's in the comments.
Right. Let us know.
Yeah.
No, I know who you're talking about. It's Matlock.
Matlock. There you go.
New Matlock.
See, why am I thinking Perry Mason? But you got Matlock. You got the remake of Hawaii Five-0.
Yeah.
It kind of plays to the older crowd,
older conservative crowds.
And then you look at CBS when they had their cartoons. We talked about Muppet Babies.
Yeah.
That was on there.
That's true.
You had the Ninja Turtles when they were dumbed down.
Yeah.
They went over there.
We love the Ninja Turtles, but it was a very, very kiddie show.
Yeah, it went real campy when they went to CBS.
Yeah.
And so like you did have some cartoons, but they were kind of phasing them out. Like you said, WB was trying to come up, so they had a lot of stuff. Fox was edgy.
Well, yeah, because I think in the 80s you also had, CBS was very much of the 80s when you think about it, because it was a very conservative era, very conservative politics. It was the Reagan era, you know what I mean? So you had a lot of that conservatism and everything kind of like coming back to less of a slapstick and just less wild. You know, everything was just really reeled into more family-friendly kids kind of stuff, which got made fun of in the, in the late 80s. Like Garfield and them would make fun of that like crazy, but you had Care Bears and things like that. But no, you did have Fox, and when Fox was coming up on its own network, and then you had, the WB. But you also had Fox Kids when they were doing Married with Children. You know, Fox had all these like wild shows that were intense and that were definitely for adults. You know, and then you had shows that kind of had to keep up with that because kids were watching that too. Everybody was watching that stuff. Everybody was watching, you know, the sitcoms of the early 90s, late 80s that were way more edgy. You know, it wasn't Cosby.
Yeah, and then you had The Simpsons in prime time.
Yeah, that's
right. So, I mean, you had... like there's so much to talk about, like, but that's to your point why I brought that up is my God, there was a lot to watch.
Yeah, there was a lot to
So
watch.
much to watch.
And if something like Eek the Cat kind of stood out to us all these years, it shows that there was something special about it, and that's why it survived so long. Like I said, organically getting to that syndication package.
Well, one thing I'll say, because I've thrown my mom in on the Winnie the Pooh, I'll throw her in on this one too, because sometimes she'd watch the cartoons with me.
Welcome in, Marie.
Yeah. But the funny thing she said about Eek the Cat is a lot of the episodes that we'd watch, she'd cringe. She'd be a little cringe to it. But I remember one time she told me after watching several episodes with me, she's like, does he ever win? Like she's like, at least with Tom and Jerry, he'll win every now and then.
Right.
Eek never wins.
It's true, folks.
Yeah, I felt bad for that cat.
I know, but it was a good show.
Yes.
And, you know, it's still well remembered. Unfortunately, Disney isn't doing anything with it right now. Maybe it needs to be remastered. And, of course, that costs a lot of money. So, you know, even though they're Disney, they're not about, like, to throw money out of the window, you know, unless it's a Star Wars film. But, sorry.
He went there.
I hate the sequels so much. I'm sorry, but... they could have been great.
I know.
But yeah, no, for it to, you know, it may just need a lot of remastering, you know, because sometimes the source material isn't great. Sometimes it hasn't been taken care of. So sometimes it'll need to go through extensive restorations. Again, like we said before, maybe it's licensing issues, which is probably more than likely it. But I'm sure it survives. You know, of course, it survives in bootlegs. So you'll always be able to find it on YouTube or at a Comic-Con. But yeah, it was a good show that really kind of a good Canadian show that really, you know, held its own against all these powerhouses that were on at the same time.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, some of these shows that actually made it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a good thing about whether VHS, DVD collections like that come on, or the internet now where you could stream or find them. Sometimes, yeah, people will be like, find an obscure cartoon, be like, "Oh, that's my favorite cartoon." It's like, really?
Right?
Yeah.
That one?
But because that's what some people tell me about Exo Squad. Like, I love that show, but it's not too many people know about it, and it's got a cult following, and like this one has a cult following because, again, Eek was up against so many other cartoons.
Yeah. And I like Exo Squad. Talking about Exo Squad, I did like that show. But yeah, some of them are very just odd little entries, but again, sometimes it just sticks with you.
Yeah.
You know, and then you just...
strikes a chord.
It strikes a chord, and you just, these cartoons are powerful. They stay with you, and, you know, they teach you a lot of things. And that's going back to PBS and the Children's Television Workshop. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to prove with Sesame Street that you could use TV to teach. And I think, you know, that show and with Jim Henson in general and cartoons in general, we've learned that, yeah, they can either be, you know, rot your brain, or they can, you know, teach you some really important life lessons along the way, or just kind of do both, which a lot of shows did. But, you know, at least you walked away with a, you know, a little more refined moral compass.
Yeah, or like a lot of us, it gets you through a tough time.
Exactly.
You know,
that's an important part of it too.
Gets you to laugh when maybe things aren't funny around you.
Much like Christopher Robin, you could use these cartoons to escape into another world and learn to maybe more positively survive what you're going through.
You see what he did there? That is amazing. See, that's why, Ty, you are who you are, because you're able to transition and wrap it up in a nice little bow. That's perfect.
And on that note, subscribe. And thank you so much again for tuning in to another episode of TNT, the K-Cal Kids. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things, press all the buttons, and comment on what you took from this episode. If you have any favorite shows that nobody else remembers that you do, please let us know what it is. We may have the same memories that you do of it that most people don't. But either way, thank you again for watching. I'm Ty Justice.
I'm Todd Fox.
And we'll see you next time.